Hey everyone, this is Dawn. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We're going to do one last bunch of Christmas cards to end out the year, and I'm going to show you how to use oxide inks to blend around the Christmas tree. So I'm going to show you the stamping that I did. I used Close My Heart's Merry Christmas Tree, and I put both stamps on my platform. They're large stamps, and so it's easier to use a stamping tool to get a clean stamp. So I've got some card panels cut at 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm stamping the first one in Julep and Peacock. We're going to do 3 cards today. And then after that one, I stamped another one in Julep and Peacock also. So we'll get that one down. And if you watched my video about dye ink blending, this is the same pattern and design of those cards. It's just the backgrounds are blended differently. So I'll show you that in a few minutes. So this one's in Julep and Peacock. I'll get those down. And then the next one is in Fern and New England Ivy. And the Fern, I wound up having to stamp it twice because I didn't get a clean image. So that's the beauty of a stamp platform. You can stamp more than once and your image will stamp in the same place. So I'm moving that over and getting the detail stamp down in New England Ivy. So we've got those all stamped, and then I'm going to emboss in clear embossing powder over those images. So I'm using Versamark ink. It's a sticky ink that embossing powder will stick to, and I'm stamping both sides with Versamark ink so that the entire image can be embossed. So when I go to blend my oxide inks around it, the ink won't stick to the image, and so the original colors that I stamped will still be clear and show up there. And you'll see what I mean in a few minutes. So I'm melting the ink or the embossing powder with my heat gun, and it takes about a minute or so, and then the embossing powder will melt. So I have a piece of masking paper, and I've cut sort of a hill into it, a shape to create the look of the tree sitting on a hill of snow. So I've masked that part off, and I'm using oxide inks around the top portion of the tree. And so I'm starting out with Tumbled Glass. Oxide inks are different from dye ink. It's a mixture of pigment and dye ink, and they're more opaque than a dye ink is. So you can put down light color, and then if you go over it with a dark color and decide that you want to go back to a light color, you can go back, and they sort of layer on top of each other rather than blending together. They do blend, but you can create sort of an opaque look as well. I'm using sponge applicators as opposed to the brushes because then you can get a thicker application of the oxide, and I just prefer to use sponges. It's a preference sort of thing. So I like to use sponges with oxides, and I like to use brushes with dye inks. So the sponge tends to lay on a thicker layer of the oxide inks. So then I'm blending that with Salty Ocean, and this one right now is Blueprint Sketch around the edges. And I'm just going back and forth until I come up with a blended image that I'm happy with. And so I went back to the lighter one, and I thought I wanted a little bit more darker around the edges, but changed my mind. Now the oxides, I've spritzed it with water and they will react with water and sort of leave like well, it's kind of a snow impression when I spritzed it with the water because the oxides kind of pull away from the water and then they leave the color behind it or white paper. So it's very subtle, but I just spritzed it a little bit. You can spritz as much as you want. They won't pull away completely, but it's just a really cool reaction when you spritz it with water. And so it kind of looks like it's snowing around the tree. So the next one, I'm using Salty Ocean and putting that down. And I start out by moving my blending sponge away and then moving onto the paper so that I don't get like heavy amounts of ink in one place. The oxides are a lot easier to move around and blend. So if you do get a concentrated area, it's no big deal. You can either put another color on top of it, and because it's opaque, it will cover it up, or you can keep on moving your sponge around and it'll eventually blend in. So then I'm going in with cracked pistachio, and I wanted that to be closer to the tree. And you'll see what I mean by the opaque nature of the ink, that I'm able, even though the cracked pistachio is kind of a lighter color than Salty Ocean, I can still get in there and put it right next to the tree and get that color in there. And then around the edges, I'm going to go in with some chipped sapphire. They're a little bit like alcohol markers where you can, go in with a lighter color and get the darker color to sort of move away, or you're actually just covering it up. So now I'm going in with the lighter color to get them all to kind of blend together. The nature of these inks, it's really cool. It's a lot different from a dye ink. It's almost, I don't know, the texture of the paper when you put it down, it's kind of it's really hard to describe. You have to see it in person. It's kind of got like a velvety sort of what word am I looking for? Suede sort of look to it. It's a lot different than the dye ink looks on the paper. They're fun to work with. So I'm just going back and forth with cracked pistachio and until I get an image that I like. And I'm spritzing this one with water. And it's really hard to see on camera, but in person you can see the reaction that takes place. And then I wiped off my tree image from the ink and then peeled off my mask. So now we're ready to start decorating the tree, and I'll take you through decorating one card and then I'll show you all three of them at the end. I didn't get on film the third card with the ink blending, but I'll show you the result at the end. I've got some still pictures of it. So I'm just kind of deciding about my sentiment, and I've got some off camera. I cut a bunch of sentiments out of black glitter paper and some holographic paper, and this particular one has a outline die that goes behind the word joy, and so I cut that in some I'm losing my words today. I cut that in some vellum paper to put behind it. So now I'm just kind of putting down some jewels and sequins and kind of deciding how I want to decorate my tree. And so I'll take you through the process of that. I'm using the Tombow Aqua glue, and I've put that into a fine tip applicator bottle from Doris. It's a little bit easier to get really tiny dots because you don't need that much. And then I've got a Marview Cheetah jewel picker. So that picks up different sequins and jewels, and then I can put down a dot of glue and get that going. And then I have some Nuvo drops. These are iridescent drops. They're dream drops. That's what I was looking for. And then I'm using the shimmer pen, the clear shimmer pen from Close to My Heart, to kind of make some snow. And then I decided I wanted a little more texture. So I went in with some texture paste from Ranger, and I put kind of a small amount right along the snow line there. And then I'll go back and add some more shimmer, my shimmer pen, and add some more shimmer to the top of that texture paste to go in there and finish off my card. I do have a small sentiment strip that says Warm Holiday Wishes, and I put that down as well. So these are my cards. That's the first one I just worked on. And it's just a variety of jewels and sequins and Nuvo drops. And there's another one. And that one was, I just used all Nuvo drops clear and a couple colors in the Dream drops. And then my third one, I used some iridescent sequins and another sentiment strip, wishing you joy and love. I appreciate you watching my videos. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for watching.